Biggest lesson really has to do around servant leadership. I think people get it wrong all the time. People think of it as like when you go on safari, you have these porters who set everything up. They do the cooking, they do everything. Basically, you're just there and they do everything for you. And some people think that's what servant leadership is. And I always remind people that it really originated with the Sherpas who help people get up the mountain at Mount Everest. And they don't drag you up that mountain. They set the conditions so that you can do it yourself. And the mere fact that there are bodies on the mountain right now shows you that they're not making it happen. It's on you, but they are creating those conditions. And I think people forget that occasionally. They think you're supposed to do everything for somebody else. That's not how people grow. That's not how they become successful.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier.
Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Today's guest is a seasoned facilities management expert with a track record of crafting successful business plans, initiating new operations, overseeing service and maintenance contracts, and leading facility teams to deliver projects on schedule and within budget. He excels in expanding territories, devising innovative planning strategies, and implementing cost containment measures that drive business growth, reduce expenses, and increase revenue. He has worked for major national corporations such as Red Robin and 7-Eleven. He is now the director of facilities at Dutch Brothers Coffee. Drew Rees, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. I'm really happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you, man. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you for taking the time. So, first question's always the same, right? With all of your experience, the companies you've been with, the positions you have held, Drew, what has been your biggest lesson learned over the years?
My biggest lesson really has to do around servant leadership. I think people get it wrong all the time. People think of it as like when you go on safari, you have these porters who set everything up. They do the cooking, they do everything. Basically, you're just there and they do everything for you. And some people think that's what servant leadership is. And I always remind people that it really originated with the Sherpas who help people get up the mountain at Mount Everest. And they don't drag you up that mountain. They set the conditions so that you can do it yourself. And the mere fact that there are bodies on the mountain right now shows you that they're not making it happen. It's on you, but they are creating those conditions. And I think people forget that occasionally. They think they think you're supposed to do everything for somebody else. And that's not how people grow. That's not how they become successful. So that's really like my biggest life lesson that I've taken away is like, I don't set the table, but I make the conditions capable to set the table.
It's such an important thing, Drew. So important. What if you could share a couple of best practices or things you've put in place over the years so that you're constantly reminding yourself and your teams following this thinking as well?
Yeah. So I still always start out, especially if I bring somebody new into the facilities, I explain to them that facilities is a 3-legged stool, but you only get 2 legs. So you can have speed, quality, or price, but you only get 2 of those things. And so you've got to learn, like, what are the conditions you're existing in? Do I need speed and quality and price isn't important? Or do I need price? Because many of us lived through some of the harder economic times that have happened. And so sometimes price is the most important thing. And then it's like, okay, do I want speed or do I want quality out of that? Knowing that if I want quality, I got to be prepared to wait a very long time to get things fixed. Or if I want speed, I might be getting less than perfect repairs done. Right. So I would say that's it. And then one of the other things is I always preach to my people is right size your service providers. If you're going to give them 20 locations, make sure they can handle 20 locations. If you're going to start them with 10 and it's going to be 20, don't promote them to failure. Like you got to right size it. And here's the thing. I want to be customer number 1 or 2 with every service provider. That's what I don't want to be 8, 9. When I have an emergency, and everyone will say that, yeah, we always take care of our customers. We know that there's a pecking order there and I want to be 1 or 2. So that's what I mean by like right sizing your service providers. I think it's super, super important.
I have a couple questions. I'm going to jump back to the three-legged stool first. Love this stuff. So do you find that you're commonly choosing the same 2? Do you alternate through the 3 very often? How does that typically play out for you?
So it's dependent on 2 things. Obviously, what's the ethos, the internal ethos of the company? And then what is the macro external environment creating that around that? So I'm really fortunate that, in my current role at this current brand, I've been able to choose, speed and quality and not have to overly worry about pricing. That doesn't mean you ignore it, right? That doesn't mean but I've been really fortunate that those are our priorities. And I always tell my facility managers, I'm like, you can't balance a 2-legged stool. So you need that 3rd leg. And guess what? That's your role. You're the 3rd leg on the stool to balance it.
Love
that. But I've been in I'm going to be honest. I tell this to folks occasionally when, we talk about, say, 2008 to 2013 and the Great Recession. I'm like, look, I did some stuff as a facilities manager I'm not proud of, and I don't want to ever have to live that way again. But, that's where you got 2 different legs. Now it's about price, right? That you're just forced to make sure that it's about price, and then you're doing your best to get quality.
You mentioned also being number 1 or 2 in the pecking order with service providers. So I do want to dig into this a little further because it's a hot topic for probably 90% of our listeners. How do you do that? What is the best practice around making sure you can vet them properly? And how does that happen?
I mean, we're not perfect at it. Right? Like we make mistakes. We vet people, and it turns out to have been a terrible decision. I think more often than not, though, I mean, everybody starts all service provider relationships. Everybody's trying to start out like, hey, we're going to be best friends and it's going to be great. But you start to, there's so many entrances of service providers who are coming from, say, they typically had a book of business in Class A, or they were doing big box, or they were doing retail. And as those opportunities have started to shrink, they're coming into QSRs and casual dining and coffee. And it's hard. I turn away a lot of folks who, like, if I see that their book of business has been Class A, they're not prepared to work at the speed that you need when you're talking about QSR or you're talking about convenience stores. They're not ready for that. And I don't want to be the guy who teaches them. That's the hardest part. So that's probably some of it. As I look at the book of business, what do you do? Who are you servicing now? Then the other thing is, if you're servicing somebody I know who's a big player in whatever market space they're in, there's almost no chance I'm going to be customer number 1 today. But if you see somebody who's like capable of growing with you, or they're capable of saying, look, this is all I need. This is my small little area. I don't need any more than that. And they'll give you the best service possible. Then, I'll give somebody 10 shops. If that's what they're going to do, like, great. But I always have my facility managers like keep an eye on them, make sure like you got more interest. They're never going to say, no, I won't take more business. Like, rarely do I ever get somebody who's that candid about things. Occasionally I do. And that's actually quite refreshing. Right. Then, you're going to have a good relationship. And then I also focus heavily on self-performing service providers. I think that it's easier to have that relationship. It's easier for them to become aware of, like, what is your corporate culture? How should they interact when they show up to your shops? I mean, most of my shops, we staff pretty young. So I need people who are aware and sensitive of that. So that they're going to have the right relationship with these shops versus like when I was with Red Robin. I've got seasoned kitchen professionals out there. I got seasoned general managers they don't need the same kind of interaction that like these young kids at our coffee shops need. So, it's about understanding all of that, that dynamic when I'm vetting out somebody.
Is it a more seasoned or sophisticated service provider that you'd require? Is that what I'm hearing then to best work with your
Yes
people?
and no. I mean, I like an enthusiastic one. I've got some espresso service companies out there that the guys who are running it are pretty young themselves, right? But they're super enthusiastic and they love what we're doing and they love being part of this culture and having it, touching into our culture from time to time and knowing that they're there to make a difference, because there's nothing worse than a key piece of equipment that's down, right? And
Sure.
they understand that they've made, they walk out of there and things are back up and running. They've actually made everybody's day better. So, but yeah, when I'm talking about like, more sophisticated systems like mechanical systems, I do want somebody who's a little, I don't want to be your training ground, right? I want, and so being fortunate to not be overly price sensitive right now in terms of what it costs to get the folks out there. Yeah. Let's get seasoned journeymen out there if we need to take care of business for us.
That's fantastic that you're in a culture and a company that affords you the ability to do that, Drew, right? Get the right people. It doesn't have to be about price, like you're saying. You said it a few times now. That's fantastic.
There may be a day in the future. I don't know.
Right. Sure.
But today's not that day. So that's great.
Well, it sounds like you, forgive the comparison, but building good foundations with your service providers. And that leads me to my our next topic, really. Like, Dutch Bros has such a unique story. I mean, I don't want to say you're in hyper growth mode, but it certainly sounds like you are, with very big goals in the future. Tell us about your facilities department and the one that existed prior to your arrival.
So, when I got here to Dutch Bros 5 years ago, a little over 5 years now, they didn't have a facilities department. I had this young man. He's now one of my regional facility managers. He's turning into an incredible facilities special, professional. But when I got here, I said, "How are you getting service providers?" He goes, "I Google them." "Oh, you Google them?" He goes, "Yeah, I Google them." I'm like, I just shook my head and said, "That's not how we do things. Let me help you to show this." So they really didn't have one. They didn't have a program. They didn't have a PM program. It was willy nilly. I mean, sometimes it might be somebody's cousin who's like, can do things. So building that foundation and we had very few, right? The company at the time had about 78, 79 company operated. We had been a franchise organization, And then as we pivoted so that we could get significant development going into company operated, it became really clear that obviously you need to have a facilities department. You need to have these programs in place. You need to be able to like multi-unit management. Early on, it was like there was this, what everyone thought was an audacious goal of like, we're going to hit 800 shops. Well, today it's 4,000, and I'm pretty sure in 5 years it's not going to be 4,000. They're going to have a much bigger goal. Well, we just keep finding blue water to go develop it, and it's a happy challenge because I'm going into places that I never supported before. I never was somebody who supported Florida. I wasn't someone who supported Louisiana, and, places that I had no experience, but it's been an incredible journey to be there and find people. Okay, come on my team. This area. Let's do this. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. And I mean, our franchise group is still important to us. Don't get me wrong. And I don't do much supporting of them, but they're important to the brand and to the company. But, now I've got about 640 company operated shops. I'll be much closer to 700 before we get to the end of the year.
Wow.
I went from a team of me and this young man to, I think I've got 15 people right now, 16 people, and probably going to be adding 10 next year. So it's super rewarding to be able to bring somebody into the industry who's got an interest, but doesn't understand it and see them grow and see them evolve. And I always tell folks, I'm like, we're a 32-year-old company, but we're really a new company. We're really basically a startup. So we're having to create processes that never existed here before. And I say, hey, it's like we're building structures for this company and we're pouring foundations. And I said, the thing about foundations is it's concrete, it's fresh concrete. Put your handprint in it. You can't always get that opportunity in your career where you can look back at an organization and say, I see where I had my handprint there. I can see it's going to be different in 20 years, but there's going to be like that foundation that you had this opportunity to help create.
That's awesome. I just got like those goosebumps that feeling of like that excitement of that type of growth and the fact that you can make such a difference and you're inspiring your team. You're clearly inspired by it, Drew, right?
And
very good.
This is, I mean, for as much as like creating something, new can give you, stress and all of that. This is the greatest company I've ever been with. And I've been with quite a few. So, I mean, this is one where you really get this opportunity. Like we say, we're selling coffee, but coffee's just our mechanism. We're really trying to sell you a good day. We're trying to sell you, we're trying to sell Dutch love. Coffee just happens to be the way we do it.
You mentioned, blue water. I love that phrase, blue ocean strategy. That's a book. I'm sure that maybe that's what you're referring to. How does the company continue to find this blue water?
Our development team, which I only have, I have working relationship with, but they work incredibly hard. These site selection managers, I mean, these poor folks, they're on the road more than a facility manager. They're out there, and sometimes they bring a site and I'm just like, is that going to work? And I get blown away by some of the locations that they find because they seem to understand, that's what they do. They understand like the traffic drivers. They understand things that are on the surface. I'm going to be like, you mean that empty strip mall where they used to have that's empty? And then next thing I know, it's like, it's breaking records after it opens. So,
sounds like they're very good at what they do.
I think they're incredible. They do a lot of, I think they're really smart because they typically are going to try, if we're entering a new market, they're typically going to try to get really close to a university or they're going to try to get really close to a military base. And that's because those are people who likely already know our brand, even if there's going to be somebody there who knows our brand, even if we've never been in that state before. And so it's a great way to start building out from that. If that's your anchor, then you can start building out past that.
Brilliant. I hadn't heard that before. It's a brilliant strategy. Think about how people move around the country is obviously the point you're making here, right? And they've been somewhere where Dutch Bros once it did exist, and now they're familiar and they can spread the word.
Yep.
Great. I know previously when we were talking at some point, Drew, you talked about this growth, and one of the rewards of it is that you can promote your team. Can you speak a little bit about that, what that means to you, how that works?
Yeah, it's creating opportunities is really the ethos of the company, right? So, a young person can start out as a broista and they can work their way up and they'll be, 3 to 6 years, depending on how fast things are moving and how dedicated they are. They're going to move into potentially a position that is like incredibly financially rewarding. I feel like I get that same opportunity. Granted, I'm not operations, I'm facilities, but I can bring somebody on board who's never had facilities experience, and I can give them that, they can get that exposure. They can start to understand things. I have so many folks, like the young man I was talking about, who was like, I'm Googling for a plumber. He's maturing into, now granted, it's been 5 years, but he's definitely maturing into somebody who's going to be a director of facilities one day. And he's going to be, because he leads with his heart. This kid is out there he's not a kid. I shouldn't say that. He's 30 something. He's 30 years old. So I shouldn't call him a kid, but he's out there trying his hardest to make these shops function as the best they can so that those broistas can serve our customers. And so it's so rewarding where I got him, I came on board. I think he was making $20 an hour. And now I've given him a career. I've given him financial security. It's just so rewarding to be able to say, hey, you changed your life. I just helped you get there. You were dedicated. I just helped you get to that place.
Yeah. And I love broista.
Yeah.
Broista. I hadn't heard that before. We hadn't talked about that. Broista. Yeah. All right. I want to get to the next question too here, so we stay on target, but the beta test of AI you mentioned. So this will occasionally come up in conversations and in our work and in the show, but you mentioned I think you mentioned a beta test for AI in your stores and your locations. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So our platform that we use is EcoTrack. Not sure if you're familiar with it, but these guys are largely dedicated to the restaurant industry. That's how they started out. We're to build a platform that's very specific and built around that. And it's also built around asset management. Its focus point is asset management. It's not focused on, so many of the other ones I've worked with are focused on service provider management and ignore the assets. But I mean, the AI that we're going to be testing, I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see, can this AI help stop a work order from going in that's not necessary simply because it makes sure that somebody at the shop double checks something. You can pop up all kinds of, troubleshooting steps, but people can just click right through it but if I can show them, if it can draw down from the internet a video, hey, go over here and do this, right? We can communicate. Have it communicate to like the young broistas in the way that they want to be communicated to. Like it could be a game changer for us where they can be engaged and don't feel like it's, I got to scan a QR code and read a bunch of PDF files. And well, no, maybe this AI can bring it down and make it a TikTok video for them. And they're all like, boom, we're on it. Right. And then we'll see where it goes. Like, I'm hoping that it can have some level of predictive repair work needed. Like it starts to see or at least send me a note and say, hey, stop repairing. I can do it. I can run reports and see like, okay, we're spending too much on it. I'd rather it tell me, stop repairing this. It's running right now, but you should plan to replace it like now.
Sure. Sure.
We've got, we're getting to a place where like we use some sensor technology just to measure like temperature in our walk-in coolers. And it sends us an alert when it's over and it's great. Well, that could get integrated into the platform. We could have a technician on the ground repairing it before anybody knew it was failing. And like, that's where I want to get to, because really, if you can create a conditions where people don't even need to think about the facility, it just kind of takes care of itself and they can do what they're really there to do. Like, that's really the hope for the future of this. Who knows? One day I think you're going to end up where everything's going to diagnose itself. A part's going to show up. There's going to be the technicians there. And then, 30 minutes later, technicians onto the next thing and nobody even knew things were failing. So I'm super excited to see how this goes.
Excited for you, Drew. And you mentioned, the predictability of it is if you could actually build something out in the future. I love your vision, by the way you're looking at this. It's not today, it's future state. And I also really like how you're making the distinction of your audience, the broistas, right, are learning in a certain way or may choose to learn in a certain way and get that material through different channels like TikTok rather than a PDF, old school, just PDF and read it, or a book they have to go through. Fantastic. Very, very good forward thinking on your part. And clearly why you've been able to grow. Now, what's it been? 5 years, you said? In about 5 years, from 70 some odd stores to 640-ish.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's hard for me to keep track of it because we're literally opening, like I get announcements, this one's open, this one's open. I'm like, I just check in with my team once in a while because they do a really good job of keeping track. I'm like, what are we really at?
So you're not doing every ribbon cutting, right? You don't have to travel constantly for this. No.
No, thankfully. I
Okay.
mean, it would be impossible. It would
Right.
literally be impossible to be at every grand opening. And like we're open. I mean, our pace is if you want to stretch it out, we're opening the shop every other day. That's really what it boils
Wow.
down.
Wow. I don't know if we could get into, I don't think we can get into one on the show today, but let's face it, we all get kind of hung up sometimes with new software rollouts, new, say, POS systems, right? In your locations or whatever it is, but you're going to roll this AI out to jump back. What do you anticipate, if anything, as issues or problems or snags? And how do you get around them? What have you built as a process there?
So I don't like, most technology, you either got a staggered rollout or you've got a big bang. And I don't like big bangs. When a big bang happens and everything goes south, you've got no fallback. So I like to do a bit of a staged, and I like to have a micro group, like test it and make sure that it's about, like, I've got other tests going on right now where I'm testing other technologies to try and, again, make these shops kind of self-working. And it's little things like, one thing that drives me crazy, I show up to a location and the lights are on during the day. And I know why it happens, right? Our kids are showing up at 4:45 in the morning. It is dark out. They're just overriding the switch. And then they don't think about that. Hey, I need to shut these lights off.
Sure.
So now we're testing like an astral clock. It's going to know, like, turn these lights off, an hour after sunrise, turn these lights on an hour before sunset, and they don't have to think about it. And they'll never notice it. Like, it won't change their world one bit, except that they show up to a location and it's well lit and safe. And that's really the kind of things that I'm doing. But I'm only doing that in 13 shops to make sure this is right. Let's keep it contained, because if it's wrong, and the lights don't come on, I'd rather have to deal with a really small group who are facing those problems, rather than let's go with 200. Oh no, 200 failures in one day is not what I want. I'll take one.
Excellent strategy. So my takeaway, right? You're saving money. You're not spending money on lights that don't need to be on during the day. You're making their life, your broistas' lives easier, because it's one less thing they have to think about, and you're doing it all through automation. Did I get it right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
And we have timers. Problem with the timer is, the moment you have a power outage, nobody resets that clock properly.
Right.
I've had so many scenarios in my life where they like, I don't know why, and whatever it might be. I can give you a quick example, not here at Dutch Bros, but one of the other brands I was with. I started getting phone calls that, hey, the hot water's shutting off at 8:30 at night, right as we're trying to get, everything. We're still in the crush of dinner. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I'd send a plumber, and they would be like, there's nothing wrong with your stuff. So finally I got on the ground myself. I went to that location. I'm looking around in the utility room, only to find out that somebody thought it was a really good idea to put a timer on the hot water heater so they weren't heating water during the night. And nobody knew this. And over the years, as power outages had happened, it had just slowly ticked the time it shut off till it was 8:30 at night, and it was really noticeable. So, I mean, this automation is going to be driven by the web, right? So if there's a power outage, it's just like your phone, right? It's going to self-correct the time. It's just, it's going to know, and it's going to stay on that same cadence. It's going to know when sunset's supposed to happen. It's going to know when sunrise is supposed to happen, and it's going to self-correct, and the kids will never have to think about it. And I don't want them to. You know what I mean? Think about? They need to think about that next customer coming and making their day amazing.
Sure. I applaud you and your team for the clear agility and the pivot that you guys constantly do. That type of growth, you're opening a location every other day. What goes into that, I can only imagine. So yeah, definitely applaud you for that. We've learned a ton from you, Drew. Well, quite a bit in a compact amount of time here. I know myself and the audience would probably like to learn a little bit about you before we part ways today. So, who is Drew Rees? How did you get here where you are today?
I am an accidental facility manager. I was on a track with operational management, and the brand I was with, and the flavor of the day with HR was, hey, go take a support role and then come back into operational management. And I said, oh, okay, I'll do this facilities thing so I can make the next leap in my operational career. And somewhere between the time that I took that role in facilities and the opportunity to move back over into operational management, there's a new HR department, new people, new philosophy. And I kind of went, oh, I guess I'm doing facilities for a while. And I honestly, I have tried on various occasions to leave facilities. And I was like, this is the career quicksand. You're never getting out of it. Once you're in facilities, you better just accept your fate and do the best you can, because you're going to be a facility manager until the day you retire.
So the quote of the show, career quicksand. Oh, man. But you seem to enjoy it. Clearly, you're very good at it, right? But
I do
continue.
enjoy it. Yeah, absolutely enjoy it. Because here's the thing. It is the one support department that is the closest to operations, right? You're always you're right there. Like, there's no 24-hour a day emergency in HR or marketing, but there is in our department, right? We've got to be on point all the time for these folks. And so it's really rewarding when you look, nobody calls you up to say, hey, I just want to let you know everything's running right? The only time they're calling you is like in the middle of a tragedy. But when you can correct it for them and get them back on pace, it's hard to not feel good about that. I mean, there's a lot of stress between those 2 points. Don't get me wrong, but when you can get them back, and yeah, they're never going to call you and say, hey, everything's running right. It's okay. Yeah. I don't need them to.
No smooth sailing calls for you.
No,
they don't got it.
But otherwise, I'm a father of one. It's my daughter's 13 years old. And like her and my family, my little family of 3 is really like my whole world. Right. And I don't have a lot of hobbies in the sense because of this. I traveled so much as a facility manager that I didn't want any other distractions when I got home. I wanted to be able to dedicate my time at home to be with them and do things with them.
Great values. Well, Drew, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I mean, just the from the AI to the hyper growth and how you handle it, it's awesome. Been an awesome discussion with you. Thanks so much for investing your time with me.
Thank you, Jay.
Of course. And thank you to the audience, everyone listening. If you learned something from Drew, if you'd like to hear more, we'll get his contact information posted. Thank you so much for tuning in. Drew, thank you again. And it's been another fantastic episode of Facility Rockstars, and we will see everyone next time.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.